Hi everyone. So I've been in the mood for funny books recently, and I've been looking at some of the lists of the funniest books of all time, looking for stuff to read, and I kept seeing My Year of Rest and Relaxation by Ottessa Moshfegh on the lists, and so I tried that one, and honestly, like, did I miss something? That's like putting The Bear in the TV comedy category. Like, I guess, I didn't laugh. I mean, don't get me wrong. I really liked it. It was a very good book. I'll talk about it in another video. But it was not a laugh a minute joyride like I was expecting. And it was more like a, oh no, I'm empathizing too much with a broken person. And now I'm in an abyss. And oh crap, I'm crying. And are you kidding me with that ending? So that being said, I decided to make my own list of my favorite funny books that I've ever read, and I'm dividing them into fiction and nonfiction, and I don't usually like nonfiction unless it's funny. I'm also going to give you two Dromiones at the end because they were so funny. I can't not have them on here. So if that's your jam, you can skip to that. To be on this list, you have to have made me laugh out loud. Not like, huh, that's funny, but like actual guffaw. Anyway, I'm going to start with fiction. Let's get into it. Okay, so the first one is Project Hail Mary by Andy Weir. I just finished this and I'm pretty sure this is going to be the best book that I read all year. I have been recommending it to everyone that will listen to me. It's so good and the audiobook is a must. What an amazing, wholesome, heartwarming, exciting, suspenseful, gut-punching, and most importantly, hilarious book. It's funny that my favorite written character from last year was an octopus in Remarkably Bright Creatures, and this year my favorite character looks like it's going to be another non-human. Without giving spoilers, hashtag Rocky Forever. Okay, next up is Good Omens by Terry Pratchett and Neil Gaiman. I have seen this masterpiece on other funniest books list, and I have to agree. I still haven't watched the show, which I can't fathom why, because Michael Sheen and David Tennant's bromance is my Roman Empire. But the book is epic and amazingly constructed and laugh out loud funny. Okay, next up is Where'd You Go, Bernadette by Maria Semple. Yes, I know this is like the third or fourth time that I've mentioned this book, but this book belongs here. This book will make you feel things, especially if you are a woman of a certain age, but it's just really, really funny, caustically so, especially if you would enjoy a biting skewering of the liberals of the Pacific Northwest. I'm going to be using this ColourPop palette that I got for my birthday from my son. So next up is Bridget Jones' Diary by Helen Fielding. It's a classic for a reason. If you love Pride and Prejudice and you've never read this, do yourself a favor. And also, if you have seen the movie and never read the book, while in this case the movie version is stellar, as always, the book is even better and it is worth your time for sure. Next up is The Importance of Being Earnest by Oscar Wilde. I know this is a play, but I can't not have this on this list. Every freaking line of this work is a banger, from the literal first line to the last. I've never seen a bad version of this because the writing is so good that it's just foolproof, like it's always going to be good. And I know there are mixed feelings about the movie version with Rupert Everett and Colin Firth and Reese Witherspoon and all that. It is a freaking delight. So next up is Northanger Abbey by Jane Austen. I've mentioned this one a lot on here, but it's the Jane book that made me LOL the most. It's Jane at her tongue-in-cheekiest. The meta descriptions of Catherine failing as a book heroine are funny enough, but the way that she skewers the Thorpe siblings almost makes me feel bad for them. I mean, it is really good and really funny. Next up is Angus Thongs and Full Frontal Snogging by Louise Renison, and in fact, the whole series. I mentioned this book in another video, and I admitted that I devoured this entire YA series pretty quickly. I couldn't stop reading it, and I don't think any series has ever made me laugh out loud harder than this one. If you've ever been a teenage girl, you'd love this. If you like Derry Girls, you'd love this. If you are anyone, you'd probably love this. Hashtag Ace Gang Forever. All right, and now for some nonfiction. The first one I'm going to mention is Brain Droppings and Napalm and Silly Putty by George Carlin. My sister and I read these books out loud to each other back when we shared a bedroom, so it was a long time ago, and I can still recall how hard we laughed at these books. They're both just kind of collections of his thoughts and material. There's not real structure, so you can just kind of pick them up here and there if you want to laugh. It's kind of like a good bathroom book, but man, they are funny. They will make you laugh out loud for sure. Next up is Bill Bryson, Neither Here Nor There. This is about his travels in Europe, and my husband and I read this in preparation for our first trip to Europe, and we both found it so hilarious and so accurate. So accurate. All of Bill Bryson's books are really funny, and they're all a delight. Walk in the Woods is one that most people have read, but this one has a nostalgic place in my heart for sure. Next up is David Sedaris, Me Talk Pretty One Day. Really any Sedaris could be on this list, but since this was my first foray into Sedaris, it's the one that kind of stands out and will always have a place in my heart. It really is brilliantly funny, and it's even better on audiobook because there is nothing like Sedaris reading Sedaris. If you've never read audiobooks before, I always say that like a good way to get into them is reading something like this because it's really just a pleasure and a delight to listen to him reading his own stuff. Next up is I'm Just a Person by Tig Notaro. If you've ever heard Tig Notaro's famous Largo special after she received her breast cancer diagnosis, then you've actually probably already read this book because you know. But if you haven't, I recommend listening to that special or watching that special and then reading this book. I will drop what I'm doing to go see Tig, to watch a special, to watch her show, to read anything she writes. She's an absolute gem. She's hilarious. She also really tugs at your heartstrings, so I recommend. Next up is Everyone Hanging Out Without Me by Mindy Kaling. This, I think, was actually the first audiobook I ever read, and I think it is a great gateway drug because listening to Mindy read her own writing was just truly delightful. I mean, she's so funny and real, and she just has such a way of finding humor in everyday circumstances that we've all been in. Chef's kiss. And lastly, I'm going to talk about two Dramions that I've read recently that I think should be on this list because they were legitimately laugh out loud hilarious. The first one I've talked about before, it's Bad Omens by the author One Bed to Rule Them All. It's obviously based on Good Omens, so that was what made me read Good Omens. It is so freaking funny. The banter is downright hilarious. The tension is amazing. Even if you've never read any Dramione fanfic, which is Draco and Hermione, if you haven't been paying attention to my page, they are so good in this one that it doesn't matter. Like, you would love it, especially if you've read Good Omens. And finally, I just finished How to Win Friends and Influence People by Olivia Blake. I didn't know Olivia Blake wrote fan fiction, and I just discovered this one. This was probably the best Hermione I've ever read. In scope alone, it was amazing. I will make a separate video where I talk about it, but it made me laugh out loud. The dialogue is maybe the best dialogue I have ever read ever. It's really well written. It's really like realistic, and it's just so freaking funny. It was over 1,000 pages, but I could have read another 1,000. Definitely worth the time. Okay, so don't mind my hair, it's a little messy, but that's the look. I hope that you enjoyed this. Do you agree with my picks for funniest books? Are there any other funny books that you could recommend? Because I've been feeling the need to read funny books lately. I don't know why. Maybe there's too much else going on in the world that's making me sad, so I just want to laugh. So please drop those in the comments, and I will see you next time. Bye!